Let's talk more about this. Firas Maksad is a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute and he joins us now. So good to have you with us. As we were discussing there, Israel's defence minister called this a new era of war that's just beginning. What do you make of this attack, and do you see it as a prelude to something bigger?
Yeah, Julia, if on October 7th, the Israeli intelligence services came across as Johnny English, completely dumbfounded and dumbstruck, today they look like James Bond, carrying out an attack in Lebanon, reaching hundreds of walkie-talkies on the heels of thousands of pagers the day before. So this is no doubt kind of a new threshold of violence that is being brought by Israel, and a breakthrough in terms of its ability to penetrate deep into Hezbollah's networks, both in Lebanon, but also in Syria, next door where some of these Hezbollah operatives are. So this is no doubt a significant blow to Hezbollah and a success to Israel. The question is, what comes next? It makes very little strategic sense if Israel stops here. This has all the hallmarks of an operation that is a prelude for a broader campaign that now the Israeli defense minister is kind of signaling and hinting might come to follow in the days and weeks ahead.
How do they seize the moment, then, to your point about this indeed being some kind of prelude? And do they wait for Hezbollah to respond, or do they use this moment where they're caught off guard and perhaps trying to recover themselves to continue this and push on?
Well, I mean, logic would say that time is not in Israel's favor right now. Hezbollah is caught completely off balance. It's very difficult for a military organization like Hezbollah to carry any kind of coordinated offensive, let alone a defense, against an Israeli offensive if it cannot communicate it, if it is largely blinded by the fact that they now do not trust each other, they don't know where the moles are in the system, they don't really have an effective command and control structure anymore. But Hezbollah is also a very effective organization. One can expect it to recover pretty quickly. So Israel will need to move fast if it wants to take advantage of this element of surprise. Obviously, this is not the only factor at play here. It is in the process of moving forces from the Gaza Strip in the south up to the north. There's also pressure coming from Washington. Washington is extremely here, U.S. officials, very frustrated with their Israeli counterparts. And somewhat embarrassing that President Biden's envoy was in Israel on Monday, and he had barely left Tel Aviv when Israel, in fact, carried out the first of these attacks. So a great deal of frustration here by the Biden administration in the fact that Israel has decided to broaden its war in Lebanon.
I mean, the US and France have been furiously working on some kind of better security arrangement in the south of Lebanon now for months. Can you see a path from this moment to achieve that, perhaps utilising this moment to get there? Because everything, of course, still contingent, or at least has been to this stage, in Hezbollah's mind on that ceasefire negotiations, which, as you said, sort of embarrassingly taking place at the same time.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why President Biden's envoy, Amos Hochstein, was in Tel Aviv. Mr. Hochstein has pretty much pre-negotiated a deal here between Hezbollah on one hand and Israel on the other that would see a new security arrangement in place in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah would withdraw a certain number of kilometers from the border. Israel would withdraw and redeploy from some of the 13 points disputed along that border. But the problem and the challenge has been that Hezbollah and Iran, its patron, have refused to make good on that deal, absent a ceasefire in Gaza that would bring relief to their ally, Hamas. And that is, of course, something that we all know is not in the offing. The ceasefire in Gaza, the talks are completely deadlocked. So the preconditioning that Iran and Hezbollah have put in place have essentially allowed this to escalate. And in the days and weeks ahead, I think Hezbollah faces a very difficult choice. Will it accept to decouple the Lebanon front from the Gaza front, or will it risk sinking Lebanon and its military capabilities along with it in a devastating war with Israel?
Which way do you think it goes? I apologize for putting you on the spot, but that is a pivotally difficult choice.
If we had a crystal ball, I think we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah.
But I do think that we are all going to be anticipating what Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah will have to say in a much anticipated speech tomorrow, 5 p.m. Beirut time. He's cornered, he's embarrassed, but at the same time, there are quite a bit of limitations in terms of the political and military realities that he has to deal with. And And Hezbollah and the Iranians are rational actors. And so he will try to thread that needle. But I would bet that some kind of escalation, some kind of Hezbollah retaliation would be deemed necessary.
We'll certainly watch that speech tomorrow. For now, thank you so much. Great to have you on the show and good to get your wisdom. Firas Maksad there, the Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute.